Aloha! Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Caesars Entertainment.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Season 3. I can't believe there's been 3 seasons. Season 3 of Return on Wellness, brought to you by, I'm so excited to say this, Caesars Entertainment. Now, traditionally, you wouldn't think Caesars Entertainment when you hear Return on Wellness. But for those of you that live outside of the meetings and events world, Caesars Entertainment is actually leading the way and has offered a wellness menu at all their meetings and events at 3 properties in Atlantic City, 9 properties in Las Vegas, because nothing says wellness like Las Vegas. But I know it seems counterintuitive, but it's amazing. And then they also have 5 properties offering their wellness menu in Reno and Lake Tahoe. So feel free to check them out and their wellness menu. If you are a meeting planner, a lot of the stuff we talk about is already in the menu. So it's kind of like your cheat sheet to integrating wellness holistically into your next meeting or event. With that, I would love to introduce Dr. Jess Garza, PhD, PMP, CMPC, LPC, NCC, ABC. No, I added the ABC. Dr. Jess Garza is joining me today. This is the second time on the show. She was with me in Season 1 very graciously when I was still learning what the heck I was doing. Today, we are going to talk about New Year's resolutions, because it is January, February, how those are going, and inherently how to address failure, because sometimes that happens with resolutions, if resolutions are even healthy. We're also going to talk about how to really implement meaningful, long-term, lasting change, and how all this ties back to meetings and events. So without any further ado, Dr. Jess.
Yay. Hey, thank you.
Hey, welcome back.
I appreciate it. This is awesome. And to see the growth is incredible. Well, sponsorship.
You were our top viewed episode of Season 1 with over like 6,000 views.
Oh, wow.
So
awesome.
I figured what better way to start off the season, and this season should be epic. I mean, I shared the list with you.
Yeah,
it is
incredible guests coming on.
I can't believe all these people have said yes.
Powerhouses.
Yes. We have a sleep doctor we're going to talk to. We have a dietitian we're going to talk to. We have a public health official we're going to talk to. We have someone who worked on the Surgeon General's Council on the research around loneliness.
How incredible.
And now she's working with the World Health Organization on loneliness. So yes, and you were right there with all of them. I am battling my imposter syndrome this year with getting to talk with all these people, but I'm really excited about what we have in store. Okay, so for our newcomers who may not know who you are, there are a lot of letters after your name.
Just a little bit.
And we know what a PhD is.
Yeah.
Is PMP Project Management Professional?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so PhD, PMP, CMPC. What does that stand for?
So Certified Mental Performance Coach.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
LPC?
A Licensed Professional Counselor.
Licensed Professional Counselor. And finally, NCC?
Nationally Certified Counselor.
Okay, so that's a lot of certifications as well as a lot of school that you have gone to with that PhD. So I always say, when people say, oh, what does she do? I always say you're a human performance psychologist. And that is still correct, yes?
Yes, not the psychologist part, but within psychology. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for correcting me, and apologies.
No, you're good.
Okay, so we're going to jump into it. We're going to touch a little bit about what we talked about last time, just as a teaser if you want to go check it out. So the last episode, we uncovered building an agenda for circadian rhythms, different learning styles. That was a long episode. We went like 90 minutes last time.
We really did, though. Just even like optimizing the time of day that you're taking in information, when to recruit people, or, business deals, all the things.
Yeah, it's still all very good, timeless information. Okay, so you can go check that out in Season 1. I think it was episode like 4 or 5. It was very early on, and I appreciate you joining me on this adventure and coming back. I promise the next time I have you on, I'll actually pay you.
Oh my gosh.
Right? That would be the next step when I can start paying guests. Okay, so let's jump into resolutions and the whole concept, because if you read on the internet, where apparently there's no fact checking anymore, there's a lot of different opinions around resolutions. And I think the intention behind it is good and well-meaning, but what are your professional thoughts on if resolutions are even healthy or not?
That's a good question. Do you even know when they started? Like, were they
Like
even
when
from?
resolutions,
Where
like,
they came
oh,
from?
no,
No?
no, of course.
So resolutions started back in the Babylonian days, like 2000 BCE was like one of the first times that it was ever recorded.
So we've been doing and failing on resolutions for 4,000 plus years.
Forever. Yep. And when it initially started, they started in mid-March timeframe was when they had set their resolutions. And it was during planting seeds. And they would go in with the intent of setting intention to harvest more, be more fruitful, have more, whatever more is. And then around 46 BCE was when Julius Caesar was reforming the calendar and had shifted January 1st as the new year. And at that point, a lot of the Romans were, I think it was Janus is who they were praising to. And so Janus was...
That would make sense. It's January, right?
There you go. Well, Janus was like a two-faced god. So one that started for beginnings and then transitions. And so in the Roman time frame, for the Romans, I'm going to say something like, I'm going to probably chop this up. They would give offerings of how they could be better in the new year, start fresh, but do good in face of their God, starting something new, and then in the transitions that they face. And then as we start to evolve a little bit more, around like 4 BCE, when Christianity took over, the kind of resolution segue, I guess, it was more towards spirituality. And so how can we improve ourselves to our God, to being a better Christian, all the things. And then when we segue into modern day today, it's more self-reflection, self-improvement, self-actualization, hitting more of like your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so when we talk about are resolutions good, are they bad? They're really a double-edged sword. Can be great for resetting purposes, for reflection and setting intentions. But where they become a pitfall is when people set resolutions that are overly rigid or overly ambiguous. And so they try to make it too big and they put themselves on undue pressure, where if one mishap happens and one failure happens, then all of a sudden I'm not good and I'm not going to do it. And I'll start again in 3 more months. And it's constantly feeling that they have to restart. So there's never really traction. And so anxiousness, overwhelm, feeling of failure spikes, and which is why people often never get to the end result of their resolution.
I heard that most resolutions last until like January 6th or some ridiculous thing. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that one, but typically by the end of January, people have already had a couple mishaps by that point already.
Yeah. Well, and I think what people can look forward to in today's discussion is why there's nothing wrong with those mishaps. And just because, let's say, people set out to do something like dry January.
Yeah.
And I saw a TikTok or something where like someone's like, oh, well, there's a birthday party, so I'm just going to borrow a day from February, which is comical, but at the same time, I think is interesting when we talk about long-term change.
Absolutely.
So you said overly ambiguous, meaning vague, right?
Very, yep.
Or overly rigid.
Correct.
Because they're trying to do something too drastic that is just so outside their character. They're like, I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro every day for the month of January. Right. And you're like,
try.
Yeah, you don't even walk.
Right. Maybe get up out of the couch first.
Right. What do you mean by over ambiguous? Like what? I'm trying to think of like a good example.
Ambiguous or like overly ambitious can kind of fall into both of those realms. Ambiguous, like same thing where it's just like there's no clear path to the end state. So you're setting these really high expectations that you have no direct route to get to, or they're overly ambitious that they want to do so many things in a 12-month calendar that they are overwhelmed by all of it and don't ever start one of them.
That makes perfect sense. So, okay, let's then segue into how people set realistic goals around that kind of thing. And if they do see January as an opportunity for a new beginning or whatnot, what would be your advice for setting realistic resolutions?
So when you think about resolutions, and it all kind of stem from too, not just like from the Babylonian days to all the way up to modern day, but you're looking at resolutions as more of a psychological cue for people to take action in the directives. So you're hitting more on psychological principles or theories from behaviorism, like B.F. Skinner, and rewards and reinforcement of behavior. And then you're going more into the cognitive psychology realm, where people will look at what's your thoughts and your intentions towards whatever goal that you have. And then goal setting in itself. Now, goal setting is great. I'm not the big fan of the term goal setting, and then tons of studies out there that says you should set goals, and we're
going to talk about that.
But I feel like the best way to start a goal is, one, understanding the reason why. There is a big power behind why in alignment with your values. Even within the goal setting theory by Edwin Locke, he talks about having it be an alignment and commitment and direction, like very specific aspects to whatever you're setting out to accomplish. So when I tell like my athletes, my clients to set goals or set resolutions, it's what's your intention? Because then there's a lot less pressure that comes with it. And even the phrases in which you're using, I should go to the gym today. I want to lose 30 pounds. And then the thoughts behind it is, I should go to the gym. Well, the should part of that sentence creates an expectation that if I don't do it, look, you're awful, you're fat, you're lazy, you have nothing. And then I just keep repeating that cycle, and then my motivation starts to lower. So instead, it could be like, my intention is to go to the gym today. But if I don't do it that day, that was my intention. And then I reframe to maybe pick a little smaller aspect. My intention is to walk around the block one time. So it's allowing for mental flexibility, cognitive flexibility, and adjust when I need to, rather than the I have to. And that's where the rigidness starts to impact people's ability to follow through.
This is something that popped into my head, but I think it falls in line with this. Have you heard of Hard 75?
Yes.
Or 75 Hard or whatever it's called?
I've tried it once. It is hard.
What do you think about that in general?
I like the program because it builds consistency. It's hard because you are taking things away and you're putting things in place. And so you're starting to create habit, which helps long-term with completing the resolution. But it is like all immersive. And so you're going all in. And so if your body is not used to that type of tempo and mentality and motivation and drive, because it's testing grit, it's testing perseverance, it's testing willpower. And if you have one bad day, shame pops in and you're like, well, great, now I have to start all over again. And so you're constantly feeling like you're having to play catch up, or am I ever going to get it? So again, this is where that double-edged sword comes into play. It can be really, really good, and there's massive results that happen from it, not just physique wise, but learning, because there's like 10 pages a day that you read, like all of it, well-rounded.
For people who aren't familiar with it, you have to work out twice a day. You have to drink a certain amount of water. Mm-hmm. You have to read 10 pages in a book. I think one of those workouts has to be outdoors.
Yep.
Which is kind of wild because a lot of people do it in January, which seems like the worst possible time to do it. Cool. And there's a number of other things. You have to take a picture of yourself every day. And there's an app. But if you miss a day,
you start back to
the clock resets. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a very rigid program.
Yes.
And not for everyone.
It is not for everybody. So that's what I mean. Like if I'm being over ambitious to do that, but I haven't even like got up to walk around the neighborhood yet, but I'm like going hard on 2 workouts a day, I'm mismatching the frequency of what is realistic for me to continue. And so then instead it would be like, well, my intention is to start, or whatever it is, in like May. So I can build up my tolerance to that, and then I can start it. That doesn't mean that it doesn't get applied throughout the year, but maybe not January 1st.
Yeah. So let's say someone's doing 75 hard and they have a day where they get the flu or something, right? They can't do anything that day. They're bedridden and they feel really down on themselves. They're beating themselves up. What would you say to that person on how to address that mindset?
Well, knowing the individuals that I work with, like a sauna would be a workout. I'm sweating and I'm getting all the crap out of my body too. But in that one, it's self-compassion. And I think it's just as important as the actual physical actions of that program in itself. And that could be a workout. It's a mental workout instead of a physical workout. So you can play with interpretations of it. And I think they have different levels of intensity anyways, where there's modifications.
Well, they don't list workouts. I think they just say workouts.
That's what it is. Yeah. You interpret that how you go. But I mean, those days are hard because let's just say that you're on day 70 and you're like, I have 5 days left and now I feel like death and I can't do anything. you've probably built enough grit to go and walk and do something, even though it feels really hard and you just want to lay in bed. Typically, that's what would happen with those individuals.
Yeah. What about the individual who is not at that level? Let's call it the general public. So not for the overachieving A-types that are like, I will do something. There's no way this will defeat me.
Correct.
What about for the average person who typically they're like, well, I blew it. Yeah. And then they get all down on themselves. What kind of tips would you give someone addressing that?
I would say first was our goal for the whole year just to complete one series. It's hard 75 or 75 or whatever it is. I keep doing it backwards. Or was it to start a habit to build a healthier lifestyle? And so if that was the case, we go back to the beginning of the reason why this even was, and maybe we needed a catapult, which was that intense program to get you moving, and you did it, we're in it. And so now we're looking at lifestyle changes, not necessarily just a quick fix program that's going to put me in a better shape mindset for X amount of days. And so that's where self-compassion comes in, and appreciation and gratitude that you've been able to show growth, show consistency all the way up to this point. And sometimes this also is a good life lesson that you can't control everything, but controllables to do.
Well, and I think this goes back to, I saw another podcast that was talking about if you're doing dry January, don't stay home. Go out.
Yeah.
Socialize. You don't have to drink while you're out. But I shared it on LinkedIn and I said, if you're doing dry January, cool. I'm not. Right. But ask yourself, why are you doing dry January? Are you trying to get healthier? Do you have a problem you're addressing?
Yeah.
What's the intention behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's the root of goal setting, is because there's something that you want to change. So let's circle back to what you talked about, because I just said goal setting. And you said earlier that's not a term you like. I'm curious why you don't like that term.
I think that it's overly used. And I think that people get stuck on the goal, the outcome of the goal, and they don't identify clearly the intentions or directives that are needed to complete the goal. And there's so many expectations that they overlay on top of it. And so if I can take out the word goal setting, like I can have an outcome goal. That's not bad. Goals aren't bad by any means. I can have an outcome goal of like, I want to speak at 10 events this year, 10 speaking gigs that are paid. That's what I want to just say. That's my goal.
That's a key asterisk there that are paid. Right. By the way, Jess is available for bookings and public speaking engagements. Go to drjessgarza.com. Did I even get that? Is that your actual website?
LegacyMindset.com.
LegacyMindset.com. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
No, thank you. That's awesome. See, we're already there. But if I have that as my only focus and someone comes in and says, hey, Jess, we would like you to do a podcast, and they don't have financial means to do it, but they have other ways to pay. And so I have to also get creative in the way that I seek payment. So if I were to do a speaking gig and someone was like, we'll do video and audio for you, we'll get some pictures, we'll allow you to do our database of people, that's a lot of money in itself. That's marketing money that I don't have to put in anymore. And so like I'm getting creative and realizing that is still movement to my 10. And then you have to go back to intention part. So when I say intentions, I usually, for athletes wise, I break it down into like 3 things. So if an athlete was wanting to work on, I'm going to use a gymnastics one. We'll just do like a back tuck. If they wanted to do a round off back handspring back tuck or a double back, whatever, it would be, what do you feel in that moment? Not what's the action, like not how you do it. Because a lot of coaches be like, you need to reach out further and da-da-da-da. Like, okay, cool. But what do you feel like when you have to reach up further? Well, I feel it in my shoulders. Okay, well, is that like a squeeze? Is it a pull? Is it a tight? Is it a what? And then they're like, well, it's a squeeze. Okay, so then the cue would be squeeze, and then 2 more cues that are related to that, but it's created within the sensation of the body so that I can disarm any other threats that might be going on, to the expectation that I have to complete the skill today or in a week before I compete. So same thing with these goal setting things. We put these high level of pressure, undue pressure on ourselves that then creates these alarm systems in our body that says, I don't know if I can do this. Like, what if I can't do it? What if I'm in the gym and everybody's staring at me? And then they're like, oh, this girl doesn't know how to work out. What is she even doing here? all the things. And now my alarm system's going off and I don't feel comfortable in that environment. So it's going to shut down movement too. But if I set the intention that today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to set the intention that I'm going to cook a healthy meal, and even that, what does that look like? And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to read 10 pages in a book. I got to the gym. I maybe was there for 30 minutes, didn't really have a plan. When I go back to self-critique, I don't get to critique the plan because my intention was to get to the gym.
Right.
And so then what they'll start to judge is, well, you didn't do this, this, and this in the gym. You pretty much got there and you did a half-assed workout kind of thing. That wasn't the intention for today. The intention was just to go. And that's all I get to critique. And then let's say I made a meal, added a little bit more butter than I probably should. But overall, it's pretty healthy. Some greens, whatever. I don't get to judge like the extra stuff. I made a healthy meal or attempted, and cool, I get to critique that. And same thing and so on. And then whatever it is that I wanted to do better, it would be like, and now, so that would be my transition words. And now, what is it that I intend to do next? And now for dinner, I'm going to remove the butter. I'm going to do, avocado oil, whatever the case may be. And so we're only being able to critique and judge the things that we set intentions on, but goal setting tends to be so robust that people can get lost easily without clear guidance. And then that just creates more shame, doubt, embarrassed, insert emotions that attach to it.
Okay, that's super helpful. I think what I'd like to do is kind of go through, let's say I want to throw some goals out there, intentions.
Yeah.
Rephrase that. And I'd like to kind of work through if they're too ambiguous or if they're too rigid.
Okay.
So I think one is get healthier. I feel like that's too ambiguous, right?
Yeah, that look like.
So you need to find some definition. If you say, I want to lose 20 pounds, is that too rigid or too ambiguous? Is that a good one?
It's kind of in between. It's getting better.
Okay.
But it's not as clear still. By when? And is it just to lose weight and not gain muscle? And what am I doing it for? Am I doing lean muscle? Am I doing, like what kind?
Oh, yeah. Because if you want to gain 20 pounds of lean muscle, you better give yourself like a couple of years.
Right.
Because that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to lose 20 pounds body fat, that's a very different.
Completely. So but people see the scale and they'll look at the number rather than understand the mechanics of the body. Like, what is it that I'm really looking for?
Yeah. I think by defining that in particular, you then are able to create a plan to actually go after that. And I think that's probably a key element of this, right? Is if you set a goal, you can't just have a goal without a plan.
Correct.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So when I worked with the military a while back, we would do goal setting plans for specific units and then soldiers too. And on there, it was literally the steps to goal setting, and we would have a goal sheet. And you would have your outcome goal and then date by, and then you would have your sub goals. So 4 main categories that elicited into that main one. And it could be all related to that goal, but we're multidimensional into beings, like parents, husbands, wives, sisters, brothers,
Right.
all the things, coworkers. And so that goal doesn't just align within, let's just say working out, isn't just workouts. Like I'm also a mom. I'm also a trainer. There's just so many different avenues that might also help to accomplish that goal. So within those sub goals, what we have is action statements, which are essentially your intentions to accomplish the sub goal to meet to the outcome goal. And then under each action statement, whatever that looks like, very specific, detailed routines, you would have a power statement that kind of emphasizes, just ignites you a little bit more, so that maybe it's only that phrase that I think of that puts me into that subcategory. And just like a stovetop, like you have burners that are in the back and you have some in the front. Some days that first burner is going to be the one that's going, and it could be workouts, and mom gets put in the back for a little bit, or work gets put in the back for a little bit. And then maybe it starts to shift and another burner turns on while that one dies down and kind of just marinates in the back. And so we're constantly shifting priorities and understanding that's okay too. But that's what I meant by people often think that they have to engage in all priorities.
Like all 4 pots have to be going all the time.
Correct. And you're going to have overflow. It's going to burn or it's going to spill over.
AKA burn out. Okay.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I think one of the things I want to do is help people ensure that they're defining what they want to accomplish thoroughly so they feel good about it, they feel like they have a plan, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the rule of something over nothing is always ideal, right?
Yeah, picking something small first.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not necessarily about, I wanted to go to the gym. That's why the intention is get to the gym today, not, I want to go bench press 225 today.
Yes.
Then you go to the gym and you do what you do, but you got there.
Correct. We celebrate the heck out of that. So as human beings, because we, for whatever reason, have gotten to this place where we self-critique quite a bit, and then we are worried about the perception of other people's self-critique.
Or we think their critique of us is going to be what we're self-critiquing.
Correct. Exactly. That is 100% that what happens. And the little girl and little guy that's inside of our bodies are constantly in fear. Are you going to yell at me today? Are you going to be mad because we didn't go, or so-and-so said that's all you're going to do today? And now you're like, see, I told you should have done more and you didn't do more. And so there's just constant shame.
It's like Inside Out.
Truly it is. That's like the best movie ever. The second one's like probably my favorite. When we do go and set, whether that was just to get to the gym, we celebrate the hell out of it. We're like, you know what? I'm so proud of you. This is so exciting. And we ignite that level of excitement, because when we look at emotions on a ladder, excitement, appreciation, gratitude, and love are at the higher part. When you look at shame, doubt, worry, fear, hopeless, helplessness, they're on the bottom of the ladder. And I like to think of this as like, have you seen Venom?
Yes.
And like he spits out these like black kind of tarry things that just attach to everything. That's how I like to envision the bottom part of the ladder, where those emotions are just tarry and they attach and they're heavy and they hold you down. So even if you're excited about this new resolution, if I'm having worry and shame and, embarrassed type of feelings, I'm not moving very fast or quickly or trying to go out of my comfort zone because I'm stuck. And then when we move up the ladder, when we feel airy and excited or whatever, that little girl boy inside is like, oh, I want to do that again, because we just got praised. And it was exciting to do that. And so I'm more likely to engage in that behavior again. That's why like behaviorism, rewards, and reinforcement they work.
That makes perfect sense. I once read a quote that like the heaviest door in the world is the door to the gym. Mm-hmm. And then there was, I think it was a very unlikely person. I think it was like Samuel L. Jackson that said something about, I think it was Terry Crews, which you won't be surprised by this statement. He's like, just go to the gym. You don't even have to work out.
Yeah.
Just get the morning paper, go to the gym, sit down, read the morning paper.
Yeah.
He goes, if you keep doing it, you're eventually going to start working out.
You will.
Because you're there.
Mm-hmm.
But just go. And last year, I had a guest on that we talked about the all or nothing mindset, and the fact that specifically she runs a online fitness community of probably 40,000 people now.
Wow.
And she used to be a trainer that trained coaches and stuff like that. And her thing was, it doesn't matter. Like sometimes all you have is the stairs and you run the stairs.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to deadlift heavy today,
right.
But it doesn't matter. You did something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I can guarantee you that if you go, oh, I only have 15 minutes today, I only have 10 minutes today, as opposed to I don't have 60 minutes, so I'm not going to do it,
right.
And skipping it, which I was late today because I was my workout, so sorry. You're going to get better just from 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And if you only have 10 minutes, if you do burpees for 10 minutes straight, you're going to hate your freaking life anyways, so it's fine. You can always do something.
You know what's sad? I used to rationalize not working out. Like I was an athlete my whole life. Love still working out. But then there's days where I'm like, I have enough time to do it. But I'm like, man, I'm going to have to like get in there. I'm going to get sweaty and I'm going to have to shower and I already look decent. So this was like in between work hours.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I'd get dressed, hair, makeup's done. And then in between like a couple hours at work that I could go and do it. Then I'm like, now I'm gonna have to shower again. And now so now we're looking at a 3-4 hour process. And I'm like, nope, just not worth it. And then I convinced myself that I didn't need to do it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Earlier, you had asked me a question about the one who's sick and what would you say to that person? This just like popped into my head as you were talking. Normalizing the event, which is what you were just saying, and accepting what it is for what it is and not for what you want it to be. But one of my favorite phrases that literally shuts down the brain is, I call it the of course method. So it's of course, whatever the emotion is. So if that person that was feeling sick is just like, well, I'm really frustrated because I'm sick and I don't get to work out. So we would use whatever their emotion is. So of course I'm frustrated. And then you would say, makes sense because you wanted to work out. And so all I'm doing is validating their emotion. And we do it to ourselves too. You would say that same thing to yourself to validate your own emotion. And what that does is lower the nervous system down enough to just be like, whew. And so when you validate it, literally the brain will go completely blank. It's just black. Nothing's in there. And for a second, you're like, oh, thank God, somebody heard me. And you're doing it to yourself too. And you're like, because typically I'm like, yeah, but it's not a big deal. You can always start again tomorrow. If I was talking to that person, or we cheer people on that way. And then they're trying to convince you why it still is not great and why they're still frustrated. And all they want to do is just be heard and validated. And then from that moment on, then you can shift and reframe, thoughts from cognitive distortions like the all and nothing. It's either I do it all or I can't have it all kind of thing. And what we do to correct that is validate the emotions enough to be able to just sit still in it for a second without feeling like you have to fix it.
And I feel like all or nothing mindsets erode consistency.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're working towards, I don't know, let's say you want to run a marathon in a certain time and your body is just beat up and you just go for a walk instead of your training day that day, you're still making progress towards that because of your consistency.
Correct.
Instead of going, well, I don't have the time to go run 15 miles today, so I'm just not going to run.
Yep.
I only have time for a 30-minute walk.
That one absolutely disrupts consistency. That one and perfectionism, because they both kind of go hand in hand. So the all or nothing, or it has to be this way, otherwise I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. And consistency is what leads to real long-term meaningful change.
Absolutely.
There's somebody on LinkedIn, and his business is like compete against yourself or something like that.
I love that.
Because it's true.
It is.
You are your biggest barrier to success.
Mm-hmm.
And he also talks about get better by 1% every day.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, you're 365% better.
That's awesome. I like to tell people, so I do this exercise called 2 Tales of Reality. And so I'll have people draw on a piece of paper and like a little tornado kind of funnel. And on the top, I'll put things I lack. And on that sheet, it's like, I'm not strong enough. I'm not fast enough. I don't have enough time. I yell at my kids. I don't know, whatever. I'm sad. I'm worried. I'm anxious. Like, and you insert all the emotions that you feel. Not enough money, not enough, whatever. So any of the storylines that you sometimes like in those moments that are just heavy,
right? And
that you've created a storyline with, you put it down in this funnel of lack. And then on the other side of that same piece of paper, you're doing the funnel again. And then on top, you put things I desire. And you're saying it in a sense as if you've already had it. But if you're a genie for the day, what would you want or have? So it's like house paid off, millions in the account, excited, life is easy, life is fun.
Free time,
whatever you can imagine. Also inserting the emotions that you have too. And so what I tell people is both of those realities exist at the same time. They're happening. But as humans, we can't be in both realities at the same time, even though they're both happening. And we get validation for both where life has been easy. I've been able to pay off things before. I do have free time. So that reality is true, as is the other ones where life is hard. I've struggled, like whatever. The problem is even within like resolutions or all or nothing thinking, we're creating this funnel that just starts to spin faster and faster. So when we're like, yeah, I got to do is 1% a day. Yes, that's true. But it's hard sometimes when we've created that thought pattern, those cognitive distortions that keep us in this funnel. And then on top of that, with that tarry emotions that keep us stuck at the bottom of it, to shift over to this side. And so when you're talking about even it's just you against you, I usually tell people like this is old version you. So this could be like Jess 1.0. This is Jess 2.0. We're not the same people we were last year. We aren't even the same people that we were a month ago. There's different versions of us daily, monthly, yearly, decades, whatever.
Right.
And so I commit to like 2025. This is Jess 3.0 now. And Jess 3.0 walks around like she has 100 million in the account. And what does that look like when she sits down? Her shoulders are back and her cadence is calm and direct and assertive. She offers to get people things because she has endless money. Like just the way that she holds herself Jess 3.0 is in this side of reality. And
I would say she's generous, as opposed to buying people Lamborghinis.
Right, there you go. But like in your head, you're creating these things,
right.
It looks like. And then there's times where I'm like, oh man, see, you don't have enough. Like life is hard. See, we're back here. And I'm like, oh, no. That's what Jess 2.0 used to think, to shift you out of that reality to get back over here so that motivation stays higher. You're operating on a higher frequency and you're welcoming in all the things that you truly do desire. Because otherwise you're shutting it off.
Right.
And then coming back down to a lower baseline and only welcoming in what it is that you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah. So I think with that, that's a perfect segue into how to address failure. And I don't want to steal your thunder, and I know you're going to have plenty of thoughts on this. The way I've always heard gym rats are like the best possible people you can hire because they have a disproportionate relationship with failure, especially the ones that go and train to failure intentionally every day. I think it was Arnold who was talking about, I have no issue with failing at something because I set an intention to go fail on a regular basis. I lift more weight than I think I can with the intention of finding where my failure point is, which I thought as a gym rat was really great advice.
That is great advice. There's also, I can't remember who said this, but it was like you're 26, maybe 24 no's away from a yes.
Say that again?
That in like a business deal, people are so afraid to pitch ideas or to get a no. And so they don't go and offer their services or tell them how great that they are because the fear of rejection.
Right.
But what if I told you that you were only 24 no's away from $1 million? And you'd be like, sign me up for all the no's in the world.
I got to go get these 24 no's out of the way.
Yeah. And so the shift of perspective changes completely. The failure of no and getting all those rejections. If I knew I had 24, I would be calling everybody. Like
I'd make 24 phone calls in the morning. If they're like, if you talk to 25 people, if you cold call on the 25th, you're going to get $1 million.
Correct. Or your contract or a deal or a yes or whatever. Then that feeling of failure or rejection goes away completely. You're like, I'm motivated now to hear more no's so that I can get that one yes, because I know I'm that much closer. And I think that's kind of the same principle here with failure. If I knew that if I failed this amount of times, I'm that much closer in closing the gap of my goal that I've put into place.
So do you have any guidance or suggestions for people who miss, let's say, a goal or a benchmark or have a failure that hits pretty hard and stings? How to mentally pick yourself up and brush yourself off? Any best practices that you'd share with people?
So that one that I talked about, the of course method, is probably my number one.
Okay.
So validating the emotion, but like literally using that framework. Because otherwise it's just like, oh, it's okay. No, it's not. They don't feel okay. Nobody feels, they just don't. Like, of course you feel whatever the emotion is, and then make sense, rationale why. It doesn't have to be a storybook. It could just be like,
of course you feel sad that you didn't close that sponsorship deal because you worked really hard on the proposal.
Yeah, could be that. And you would have that person say their feeling and emotions without me filling it in. So like an easy one, even this morning where I was like, oh, I'm tired. And you're like, well, of course you feel tired. You stayed up all night cleaning your house. And I'm like, yeah. And then all of a sudden I just got like validated. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then I'm like, okay, well now I have a choice. I can either choose to sit in that emotion where I was just, or I can choose to take that one step or next intention or next directive to take action. And so even in an athlete setting, because those emotions are heavy, right? They're tarry, they're sticky. So when you're feeling failure and having frustration and every other emotion, you get to go off by yourself. I'm not going to attach to your energy. I'll give you your space. And when you're ready, you can come back to me. And you can go and validate your emotions, but do like a 2-minute kind of timeout thing, like where you just get to sit in it. And if you're going to be frustrated, then you got to be like really frustrated, like feel it. And then afterwards you're like, do I need 2 more minutes? And maybe you do. And if not, then eventually you're going to get tired of being singled out in a group setting that you're missing everything else that they're doing. But if you're going to go back over there, then it's a choice to fully participate and engage and do X, Y, Z. Same thing in a business setting where like you may not have gotten the deal or it's taking longer to get the contract signed and XYZ. And you're like so flustered because you're getting hounded by your bosses. You're waiting for it to come onto the table and you're waiting for all the service industry, like especially the events space, to go and execute and you're like, I don't know what to do. You're kind of in a pickle. In those ones, you go and validate and you sit and you're like, I can't do anything in this moment. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell my team, I'm going to prep them and be like, as soon as this comes across my desk, get ready to go. And so I can recreate momentum and excitement and ease by reframing and sitting in the emotion in itself. One of the other things I do too is to say, so you've been to a parade before, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's all different kinds of floats. Emotions are the things that I think tend to drive a lot of our behaviors or stuck patterns or cognitive distortions. Every thought that you have has a biochemical release that creates an emotional state. So you would have lots of thoughts and a slew of emotions where you're going from like angry to sad within milliseconds of each other. So the emotions, if I start to attach to it, I jump. So if I have a parade, I tell kids or, adults, lay out a float, maybe do 3 or 4 floats and then put an emotion onto it. What does it feel like? What are you attaching to it? And then I want you to be like a participant, like you're at Disney World, watching the float go by. But we as humans like to run after it, grab on it, let it drag us. And we're like, no, don't let go. I need to be sad for a long time. But instead of letting it just pass by, because emotions are fleeting, they're quick and they constantly come and go. Some of them have a little bit more intensity and duration. And then we shift to
some floats are bigger than other floats.
Right, exactly. And so if I can acknowledge that like, hey, I'm feeling sad right now, but I just need it to go by. I don't need to attach to it. I don't need to sit on it. I don't need to wave from it. That also is a good way to help kind of de-escalate the intensity of those emotions.
Okay, I think that's some great insights. I want to do the question of the season. That last year it was like, what should we keep doing? What do we need more of? What do we need less of? This year, the question is, especially because pretty much everyone I'm talking to is not an event professional.
I love it.
What are the top 3 things you would want an event professional to know?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would say 1 is you're not alone. I think people in the event space, especially when they're running their own event, depending on your more mid-manager or higher manager level, it can feel very daunting and alone when there's just chaos constantly going and you're running and trusting the teams to deliver all the things that they need to, that those emotions are real, but don't hold on to them. Like you can feel overwhelmed, you can feel anxious, you can feel worried.
Just part of the parade.
It is part of the parade, but we don't jump on the parade or we don't jump on the float. We watch
the parade
yes.
And we let it move on by.
Yes. The second one I would say is a lot more compassion. A lot of the event professionals that I've worked with, there's a lot of shame, which then can create the whole imposter syndrome. And I mean, over the last 2 years that I've worked within that industry, imposter syndrome has come up quite a bit. And so I'd say trust in yourself and your abilities, because they're not wrong.
So self-compassion.
Self-compassion and then trusting in self.
Okay.
That will minimize the imposter syndrome. So don't attach to the emotions, like you're not alone. And then self-compassion, giving yourself the kudos that you need, that little girl, little boy inside, give them some excitement and some praise so that we don't get the burnout, because that also happens quite a bit, high burnout in the event profession industry, and then imposter syndrome.
I would say find that moment. There's always a moment, at least this is maybe just me, and I have the cheat sheet because I get to sit down and talk with you. There's always at like one point where I'm in the event and I go, holy fuck, this is amazing.
That's awesome.
And like, I feel like we all need to be on alert for that moment through the duration of an event, because that's your peak. Like, even if they bring you out on stage and thank you in front of the company, which happens sometimes, that's great. But you put all that effort in. Be on alert for that moment that you're like, oh my God, this is phenomenal.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the emotion that you can jump on the parade with.
That's the Mickey
yes.
float. So you jump on, you leave with Mickey.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Because if I can recreate and prime that emotion, then my body starts to invoke more of those opportunities to prime and receive and see those moments, not just to catch it when it randomly happens, but I get to look for more opportunities to say like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah, we just did a sales kickoff that we had 175 people in this like retro vibey bowling alley place. And it was halfway through the party and you could just tell literally the vibe was spot on and everyone was just having a great time. Nobody was like getting drunk and stupid or anything. Yeah. I just like did a lap and I was like, yep. And I went and found my client and I like high-fived him like,
oh, that's awesome.
We nailed it.
I love
Everyone's loving it.
So if more people could do that with themselves and appreciate what they're doing. That kind of goes in line with the self-compassion. I think that would serve them so well in 2025.
Okay. So that's number 2.
The third one, I would say community is a big one. When I say that you're not alone, there is incredible people, and I'm going to do shout outs. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Liz and Nicole with the Community Factory, the way that they have brought event professionals together
And Club Ichi.
Yeah. is unreal. It's given people a platform to have a voice, to be able to be seen, to be able to work through hard concepts, struggles, issues, whatever. It really is a playground for people to connect and thrive. So I'd say get invested into the community.
Yeah. Okay. So for recap purpose and without me interjecting, and for the socials, top 3 things that you would say to an event professional.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to start over. No, just kidding. You're not alone. Join a community. Club Ichi is a great one with Liz and Nicole. And then self-compassion, giving yourself praise and being able to honor the gifts and the delivery that you did within your event.
Okay. Beautiful. Dr. Jess, thank you so much for joining me again. Episode 1 is done.
Yay.
Here we go into season 3. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Once again, this season is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment. You can check out their wellness menu on the end screen. There's a little QR code. You can scan it and you can check it out. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you to all of you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For more information on Caesars Entertainment's offerings, please scan the QR code. Make sure to subscribe to be notified when our next episode is out.